Well, a good Saturday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Nicholas Herboso. We've got a lot to talk about in the tropics and a lot of questions, I'm sure. Have my phone here. I can see who's watching. Make sure you're commenting. Also, make sure you go to my Facebook page. I'll be posting regular updates throughout the weekend. And my Facebook page is my initials, so NBH. So search on Facebook at KNBH. WX, that's the call sign letter K, NBH, WX on Facebook. That's my Facebook page. Be careful because sometimes you land on my personal page as well. The NBHWX Nicholas Herboso is the Facebook page that you'll want to follow for the latest information. I'll be updating it throughout the weekend. It's been a busy morning for sure because we've had multiple updates with the National Hurricane Center, and this is where we're standing now. So we have a new hurricane, believe it or not, in the middle of the Atlantic. This is Hurricane Franklin. We have a couple areas way out here that I'm not really concerned with. And then we have one area that has a high chance for development, 90%. This is the one that kind of everybody's been talking about. This one that is going to be entering into the Gulf of Mexico. There's another look at the big picture for you. As you can see, plenty of things that we're tracking, but the thing entering into the Gulf is going to be the main story. So let me get this thing started here for us. Once again, a big picture. Franklin, now a hurricane just north of Puerto Rico there. That thing is going to move up into the middle of the Atlantic, and then we have one area entering into the Gulf of Mexico. Our Gulf of Mexico area is the thing that's generating lots of questions, and I'm waiting to see your questions as well on the Facebook. Here's the main headlines. We have this disturbance organizing off the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. And you can see where Cozumel is right there. And this morning it has become much better organized, and it is very, very likely to develop into our next named system, or at least into a tropical depression in the next day or so, really. In fact, it's probably pushing tropical status right now. However, the forecast is somewhat uncertain, and I say somewhat. It's getting a little better at this point. The models are coming into slightly more agreement, so we have a slightly better picture at what's going on. And a lot of people are talking about this right now, and it's very much, and I'm actually looking at another tweet right now from another meteorologist, very popular meteorologist, and just talking about the structure of the storm this morning. It is really true that this system is getting better organized, and it is going to move to the Gulf of Mexico, so we have a lot of questions about it, so let's break it down. So based on the outlook map, you kind of get an idea of where it's going. It's going to kind of linger off the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula for a little while before making its way up towards kind of the Big Bend region of Florida, maybe a little bit into the Florida Panhandle, but there is kind of a spread of model guidance. And I want to start off looking at the satellite imagery for us, because this is the kind of thing that's been interesting. This is the enhanced satellite, so I've overlaid the infrared satellite, which is the colors, over the visible satellite, and I'm going to take this full so you can kind of see this here a little clearer. So this is where this is. This is south of us, well south of us. This is kind of on the edge of the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean, the Yucatan Channel, if you will. And one thing that we're seeing here is we have definite westerly flow. If you look at the little itty bitty clouds down at the surface, we have westerly flow down at the surface. So we have some kind of westerly wind. Then we have some kind of southwesterly wind. So, okay, that's part of a circulation. And it looks like we have some kind of easterly component to the winds here, and a slight easterly component on the northern half. So do we have a closed circulation? That's the big question. And once we find a center of circulation that is closed, then the models can actually latch onto something and do a much better job with it. Another look at the satellite. This is just the true visible satellite, so what you would essentially see from space. And taking a look at it really closely, you can see that there is some spiral banding starting to happen with this thing. So it's getting really close to being an actual tropical system. Now, everybody's asking, where in the world is this going? Well, let's take a look at it, starting with the big picture. So we have the heat dome, right? You know, the heat dome that's giving us like 103 degrees today. That's going to move away. from us. In fact, this goes to the western United States, and we have this kind of opening here. So here's our low pressure area developing. This is Monday. It's going to linger around the tip of the Yucatan around Monday, and then the weakness begins to happen. You're going to see these lighter colors up here. This is a trough of low pressure. We're actually going to have a cool front come into our area and stall just kind of around our area, and that's going to bring us some showers and thunderstorms Monday and Tuesday. And the interaction with this trough, that surface cold front, and this low pressure system kind of determines where this thing ends up going. And there's a broad range of tracks right now. The GFS is kind of hinting at the lower pressures ending up somewhere around the Big Bend area. Now, these models are going to continue to windshield wiper or left and right, but for the most part, it does look like the Big Bend area is going to be the thing. And then after this thing moves out, looks like high pressure begins to build in and we start to warm up once again. So here's one forecast model. I'll take it full screen for you. And this is the main thing. Where does the center form? It looks like we have a center forming now, but this is 2 p.m. on Monday. And it's in the exact same spot that it is according to this forecast model. So we have time. We're still a ways out, so we have a little bit of time to watch this. So no need to really get concerned about it at this moment. We have time to watch it. And based on this forecast model, the indications have been more and more consistent that we get something that moves slightly closer towards the Big Bend of Florida. Early this morning, this GFS forecast model had more in the Panhandle. Now it moves closer towards the Big Bend. Here's this forecast model. As you can see, it's a broader circulation overall. So this indicates that, yeah, some of us could get some rain, at least if it's this forecast model that is perfectly right, which the odds of this forecast model being perfectly right are pretty much slim to none because they're going to change every single run. But in this case, as you can see, the center of circulation just kind of south of Apalachicola, if you will. And this thing is going to be moving into kind of the Big Bend area, kind of near Apalachicola, at least according to this one forecast model. This is one forecast model. There's a lot of other forecast models out there, and I'm going to get into those in a second. As you can see, it tracks into Georgia. A lot of rain, very likely, I think the solution is that we get some rain at least somewhere in the Carolinas and in Georgia. And of course, Florida is kind of a definite right now that somewhere in Florida is going to get some impacts from this system, especially if you're in the Big Bend area or something. Now, switching models to the European model, slightly different solution here. Here's our low pressure area. And it takes a track a little, this is noon on Tuesday. It tends to be a little bit faster. This is 7 a.m. on Wednesday, a landfall near the Big Bend. This solution would have the Fox 10 viewing area much drier on the dry western side of the system, which is going to be consistent pretty much throughout all model runs. We're on the drier western side. It just kind of depends on how close the system actually gets to the Fox 10 viewing area to determine our rain chances. But notice I'm just talking about rain chances. Right now, it's a little too early to tell intensity or anything, but right now we're looking at a blob of moisture that's going to be coming up likely into the Big Bend area of Florida, but there is still some wiggle room, as you saw the GFS versus the European. Now, you might have questions of, okay, how does this compare to the European and the GFS? How do these two models compare together? Well, let's just do it. We're going to have them both going at the same time. So GFS is going to be in the red circles. The red circles indicating lower pressures. Then the blue will be the European, indicating lower pressures there. So you're going to start to see our bands, and I'm going to take this full so you can see this. Notice the difference. Notice the difference in position between the GFS, which the center of the circle is right here, versus the European, which the center of the circle is over there. That is a difference. And that's the thing. We don't have a center of circulation yet. We don't know exactly where that is. So we can't exactly latch onto something and extrapolate it out. So here's Tuesday, 9 p.m. Big main story for us, and this is either way with both of these forecast models, Tuesday, surf really starts to go up. In fact, the high risk of rip currents likely as we get closer towards like Tuesday evening. So that's a definite for us at the beaches. If you have beach plans next week, the surf is going to be incredibly rough. But there is a difference in position here, of course. And taking it to 9 a.m., Good thing is that we do have some consistency in timing. There was some tendency for the European to be a little bit faster, has the trough that's to our north a little bit stronger, so it kind of pulls a little faster. But you can see the difference here. Not too much of a difference, but there is a little bit of model spread, and I'm looking at the kind of center bullseyes, at least for the center landfall location. There's impacts that will be more widespread throughout throughout Florida, really, with this system. But there's your two areas, and as you can see, they're pretty consistent, and they're going to windshield wiper back and forth. We're going to see model runs where they might shift more towards the panhandle, might shift more towards deeper into the peninsula. That's just how it's going to be. And also something to note about the European. It actually hooks this thing offshore. Notice the GFS dissipated it. It's nowhere near. There's no red circle anymore. But the European has a much more strong system that actually crosses over and ends up in the Atlantic. So just a different solution there, something different to see. Here's the forecast models. These are the spaghetti plots, the all popular spaghetti plots. And one thing that has been interesting to me in recent runs, and I might have to move this thing around a little bit, we have some higher resolution forecast models that run pretty frequently. I'm going to have to reset this thing, aren't I? That run pretty frequently. And what these forecast models have done, I'm going to have to reset this thing. Give me 1 second. Let's play it from here. Let me make sure this is good. All right, now let's roll with this thing. So going back to this, you see our forecast models. These forecast models here are higher resolution forecast models, and they have taken definitely a more eastward shift as of the latest runs. However, that could completely change. That's just how it is. So we might see these windshield wiper back and forth. So if you're in Florida, it kind of looks like the impacts are there, especially if you're in the Big Bend, Florida, or in the peninsula, kind of near Tampa Bay area. You're going to see some rain most likely. Just thinking about the impacts, this is a system that's not one line, you know. A system takes up space. So you're going to have wide rain shield, an area of winds. So anywhere in this Big Bend area could be dealing with rain, also stretching into the peninsula. For our area, the Foxton viewing area, right now the trend, at least according to these forecast models, without a shift, would be a drier solution. So Wednesday and Thursday being slightly drier, mostly Wednesday. Now, what I'm done here is overlaid the GFS ensemble member plots. So multiple members of the GFS forecast model, multiple individual kind of runs of it, all plotted onto the map. And this is kind of how we get some of the more deterministic, some of the more popular full-on GFS forecast model that we've been showing in the past few frames. So these ensemble plots, all this kind of spaghetti mess, gives some kind of indication of what the model is doing in individual models. So we get a wider view, essentially, of what's going on. And you can see they're generally tightly packed. However, we do still have our outliers. And we have even some that move closer into the Foxton viewing area. But you notice those are outliers. And the most consistent track is still kind of in this area. Now, will there be shifts in the track? Yes, 1,000%. That always happens with a Gulf tropical system. And shifts in track as late as like hours out from landfall. That just kind of happens. That's just what we know to deal with. So the main story is everybody in this area needs to have some kind of plan in place ready to go. And the best advice is really, this is something that you should have at the beginning of hurricane season. You should already have your plan in place. You should already have your supply kit ready. You should already know what you're going to do. Or if you've had a recent change or something, or you have something changed to where maybe you don't know exactly what you would do in a tropical situation, you need to reassess those plans regularly just so you know what's going on. So the bottom line here, exact track and impacts slowly becoming more defined. And as this system becomes more defined, then we'll learn more about it and we can be able to pinpoint the track a little bit more. All of us from the Foxton viewing area all the way up to the kind of pretty much just the southeast in general, all the way down to Miami really in Florida, should keep some kind of eye on this system for sure. Keep an eye on the forecast. And as the days get closer, remember I said this thing's going to sit down here for a little while. All the way up until Monday, it's still going to be in the southern Gulf of Mexico. The southern Gulf of Mexico. So we have time. Just keep watch and then review your plan, and if we determine that we need to take action, we can do that. And we don't even have a storm yet. That's the thing. We don't even have a forecast track yet. So we have time.